All right, I'd like to welcome you back to City of Atlanta Fishing Field Team, COA Field Team, and I'm Glenn. And this round we're talking trout fishing 1, 2, 3 strategy. Had a question come in from one of our viewers asking about showing how we would approach spin fishing or spinning gear when we go trout fishing. And we normally use fly fishing gear, but we do have one individual who likes using spin fishing gear or spinning gear. And so to answer the mail, I decided to put a quick infographic, and we'll get that posted online, that explains trout fishing 1, 2, 3 strategy, spinning gear anyone, and it talks about 1, 2, 3 key steps in that strategy. Let me just kind of show a little deal here. Ooh, 1, 2, 3. All right, so we'll start off with 1. Rod reel setup, tackle, and rig setups. And that's that first category that we'll be discussing specifically. And so let's talk about rod and reels. Here's our, right here, just grab it real quick. First one's going to be a Berkeley Lightning rod. It's a 6'6" rod, medium light, ultralight spinning gear. Got a small reel on there, and it goes, I think, 4-pound test on this one. All right, and this is the longer rod that we have. And our strategy, we like using 2 rods for various reasons that we'll explain. Here's a shorter rod. This one's 4.5 feet. This one has about 6-pound test as well. And we used to have a match pair where they're about 4.5 feet. Unfortunately, lost them while we were kayak fishing, but we've since replaced them. But we don't use them trout fishing anymore. We use them for kayak fishing because there's those Zebco ones that we use up there. Up to, and the reason why we like them is because the handles float, or actually the whole thing floats. Enough flotation on it that you don't lose your rod. So now we have those instead. From a rod and reel setup, we have 2 rod and reels. Ultralight preferred. You can use medium light, medium heavy, or medium gear. Kind of stay away from the heavy. But if you do go with medium light, medium spinning gear, definitely use lighter line. So if you have it with a higher poundage test, go ahead and a length of 4 to 6 pound test as a leader, or something to help with the fishing, as the trout tend to stray away from those heavier tests. The poundage, 4 to 6 pound test. These are the ones that we currently use. There's a 6-pound that's kind of beat up, as well as a 4-pound test right here. And they've been pretty good for us. We did use monofilament initially, then we went to fluorocarbon and back to monofilament. Switched from fluorocarbon back to monofilament when I think that was one year where we left our line outside in the car. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and then for some reason kept snapping after that. So we tend to use monofilament when we keep our gear outside in the little pickup truck, so we're ready to go at any moment's time. From a tackle standpoint, we have various hooks. Typically size 10 to 16 is what we use because they're small trout. If we do get into some bigger ones, we'll go with let's say a size 6 or a size 10, but with that heavier wire gauge. All right, here. This one is one that we picked up on the Guadalupe several years ago. That is a heavier wire diameter rod that can definitely handle some of those bigger trout. And then here's a salmon egg variety with some redness in it. We have both of those. So you definitely have hooks. If you are going to do catch and keep, switch over to a treble hook, a small treble hook. And if you're using power bait, you can definitely get your limit fairly quickly. Use that method. We have split shot of various sizes, as well as some sinkers. Additionally, it will carry some plastic beads, swivels, and whatnot. The plastic beads mainly, in this case, is to help stop the line in the case of a bubble float rig, as well as in a Carolina rig. We'll use that as well to stop that worm weight from making it up to the hook, and give us that length of line that we need for, let's say, the 12-18 inch range, depending on where we're fishing. Definitely have bubble floats. We've got several bubble floats here. The one that we definitely like using for sure is an adjust-a-bubble. Unfortunately, we don't have that available right now. I think we have it on one of our rods or in one of our jackets. But that's the one that we also like using. And so from a tackle standpoint, definitely have the minimum hook, split shots and weights, plastic bead, swivel. I have that extra modified line ready, or pound line that you like. And then that bubble float in case you need to switch over to fishing flies. Okay, from a rig setup, power bait rigs or bait rigs. We've published a article online. It's one of our popular ones, power bait rigs for trout fishing. It's on Hub Pages. We'll put a link to it in the description. Big thing there is it describes different ways that we set up our power bait rigs, and in most cases we either use a Carolina type rig or we'll just throw that split shot on there. And like in this case, we were in a hurry. Here's the split shot, and here's power worm and about 18 inches worth of line. And then with bubble fly rigs, again, when we need to switch up because the strategy calls for it or the pattern calls for it, bubble flies or a bubble fly rig, I have that bubble float and our flies ready to go. Additionally, we'll do tandem rigs where we're setting up be it 2 fishing flies on that bubble fly. Something to think about as well. And then one that we always keep in our back pocket, you may not have heard before, but what we'll do is we'll take one of these old Castmaster lures, remove the treble hook from it, and then add a length of line. And in this case, when the trout are further down in the water column, well below where that bubble fly rig will go, we'll use this setup, put the fly and let it drift down to the bottom, and then they'll attack this baby. Or sometimes we'll just slowly reel it back in and hit this one. You'll still get hits on this one, but since there's no hook, no worries. We have tried before where we do have the hook, similar like to do tandem rigs with fishing flies, but we notice is we end up getting fouled a lot. So we've found that this is a fairly clean way when we need to get that fishing fly down and we don't have our fly gear or fly fishing gear. Instead, we're working with spinning gear. So that's it from a rod reel standpoint, tackle, as well as how we rig things. So next up, number 2, baits. Oh, let's talk baits. There's all kinds of different baits. You got your grocery baits, you got your power baits, you have your naturals. So let's talk grocery baits. So worst case scenario, you're out there and, well, you get hungry. Well, you got your grocery store baits, so you got everything you need there. Specifically, what we say with grocery store baits is, right here we have marshmallows and some bread, but when we're also talking about corn, we're also talking about Velveeta cheese, and of course the bread. And oh, by the way, you get hungry, throw in some of that Velveeta cheese on some bread, and there you go, you got lunch. But we suggest doing that before you start using it for bait. Once you use it for bait, well, it's up to you, but we suggest maybe not. Anyway, so that's grocery store baits. Power baits, we've got various power baits to include our favorite, the Rainbow Trout Glitter. All right, it's at different colors, and so when the pattern's changing and whatnot, this seems to be a good one to work for us. Here's one with a natural scent trout bait that's got salmon egg smell to it, but there's other ones that have a cheese as well as a garlic. And this one works well too, and it's basically a dough bait that you just knead into a ball around the hook and cast it out. It does float up, so when you have that Carolina rig or that split shot, it's going to ride 12 to 18 inches above the bottom. All right, and then you'll notice, I think we've got one of these underwater videos where we're seeing how the trout are attacking various baits, be it power bait and corn. So it's a good one to take a look at and see how they will pick at a bait as you're fishing, and may kind of tend to set the hook too soon, because a lot of times you'll see them just pick away at it. Next thing you know, they haven't actually gotten hooked. Additionally, you got power bait power eggs. These are nice because a little bit cleaner than your trout bait, dough bait like style. Instead, it's these little rounded balls already, and they fit right into your hook, and they hold really well. So that's another one that we'll keep in our back pocket, ready to go from a bait standpoint. And then we'll have our naturals. We've got these salmon eggs as well as night crawlers. So we've seen that that's been a good one for us. And then one that kind of is a mix between, is it really bait or is it really a lure, are these power worms. So they're made by Power Bait, and what we noticed is right here, these mouse tail Power Bait. These tend to work really well in different locations, specifically on the Trinity, especially when we're working some of those big trout that they stock during TRWD Fly Fest. The power worms have been working for us back at Waterloo earlier this year, or late last year, as well as last year on the Lower Illinois. These have been a really good one for us. Power bait worms, rigged wacky style. Those have been good. So other things, from a lure standpoint, we've got Castmasters, we've got Super Dupers, we've got Rooster Tails. Additionally, you have inline spinners like the Met. All those are good ones to have in your back pocket from a lure standpoint. The Castmasters we usually will get in a silver as well as gold, as well as a larger and smaller size. I think it's like 1 1/4 versus 1 1/8 ounce. Super Dupers, silver, brass or gold, and then copper. Additionally, there was one year back on the blue, they wanted this rainbow trout as well as this black color. Another year, we were fishing the Trinity over there by Leela, Lake Louisville Ecological Learning Area, and all they wanted was copper. Regardless of what you were using, they wanted the copper Super Duper. Other things to keep in mind is the inline spinners. You've got Rooster Tails, Mepps inline spinners, as well as a variant of a inline spinner, the Pistol Pete. Those are always good ones to have. Those will typically get in 1 1/8 as well as 1 1/4 ounce size. Let's see, we've got white, we've got black, we have this Firetail one. We've used chartreuse before, but we've also used this Firetail in place of chartreuse. It seems to be working pretty good. We find that that seems to be a go-getter. In the case of which one you use and in what situation, we'll tend to use the Super Duper as well as the Castmaster when we want to cast further into the pond, as well as do a stop and go retrieve. In the case of the Rooster Tail, we'll tend to fish that one when the fish are actively chasing lures and whatnot, and we'll tend to fish that one either a fast retrieve or a slow retrieve. But if we want to do that stop and go retrieve, we'll shift over to the Super Duper. But again, just play it by ear, and once you find the pattern, stick with it. All right. So those are the lures, or some of the lures that we tend to use. In the case of that one lure that we're not sure of, the case of the power bait, power worm, a mouse tail, trout magnets, are those a bait? Are those a lure? Well, I'm not sure what you want to call it, but we're just using them. All right. Because they are an effective lure or bait. Fishing flies. Some of the fishing flies that we'll have in our back pocket or our fly box, basically the same ones that we take when we go fly fishing. But when you're just trying to kind of focus your activities from a spin fishing gear standpoint, I would say at a minimum have some type of streamer, a woolly bugger, a near deer. Mop flies are good to have. Additionally, you want to have some nymphs, be it a gold rib hare's ear nymph, a prince nymph, or a pheasant tail nymph. And then dry fly standpoint, you do want to have some type of dry fly, be it a Cahill, a midge. Just because, like in the case of we were fishing Frisco, it seems like every year right around the evening time a hatch happens, and these little something black one year, another one was sort of a sulfur color or creamish brown color. In about a size 18, size 20 pattern was hatching, and well, that's all they were eating. So it's good to have that in your back pocket. And then additionally, you do want to have some kind of midge to fish underwater, be it a zebra midge. San Juan worms are also good to have available too. All right. And then of course you have that bubble fly rig ready to go. Okay, so you've got everything together, and now it's time to apply the third step or third part of the 1, 2, 3 strategy. In this case, you find the pattern. How do you do it? Well, observe, and then fish, and then adjust. And what we say, observe when you get to the location, see what's already happening. Maybe someone's already catching some fish and whatnot, and you can see that they're using a certain type of lure, or a certain type of style, or pattern, or technique. Additionally, keep in mind that when it was last stocked, that makes a difference, as well as water clarity. If it's clearer versus darker, you may have to adjust the colors and patterns that you're using, or types of fishing flies. You may have to use bait if it's really, really stained and they really don't want or can't see or attracted to your lure, fishing fly, or whatnot. And then are they actively feeding? Do you see them hitting on the surface, feeding, or do you see them moving about, in some case porpoising on the surface, near the surface, or see them chasing things about and whatnot? So when you have those polarized glasses, you're looking into the water, it's a good thing to just take note of what they're doing. All right, so you observe, and then try finding the pattern. So if there's two of you, one of you fish bait, one of you fish lures. And if there's only one of you, then if locations that allow you fishing two poles, then we fish one with lures and fish one with bait, and keep adjusting until you find what they're hitting on. If they don't allow and you're alone, you have to use only one pole at a time, then fish one pole at a time, and just switch back and forth from be it bait, lure, and back and forth until you find that pattern as well. And once you do find a pattern, stick to that pattern as long as they're hitting, and then if they do stop, start again changing up things and seeing what you need to do to adjust to find that pattern again. And then once you've located it again or identify it again, go for that pattern again. And then hopefully you'll have a limited trout in the end. All right. So with that is our trout fishing 1, 2, 3 strategy. We hope that we answered the bell, and we'll hope in the next few that we'll be able to apply this strategy and demo you how we would go about in the field approaching a particular location, fishing with spinning gear for trout. All right, so remember, 1, what is your rod reel setups as well as rigs? 2, your baits, lures, fishing flies. 3, finding that pattern. All right, so hope this was useful for you. And if you do like what we're doing, do like and subscribe. And until then, till next time, we'll catch y'all later, and good luck and good fishing.